US President Donald Trump warned Europe illegal migration was destroying European heritage in a long-ranging speech delivered at the UN General Assembly.
Super Typhoon Ragasa, as one of the strongest in years, has halted life on the southern Chinese coast after leaving a trail of deadly destruction in Taiwan and the Philippines.
US President Donald Trump warned Europe migration was destroying their countries, said he solved 7 wars worldwide, and suggested he win a Nobel Peace Prize in a long, winding speech delivered at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. We've collected some of the highlights here.
I'm the President of the United States, but I worry about Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration. This double-tailed monster destroys everything in its wake, and they cannot let that happen any longer. You're doing it because you want to be nice, you want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage.
Trump also claimed he solved 7 long-time wars across the globe.
Likewise, in a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars. Not mentioning names, I see it, and I could call.
Elsewhere, he suggested he should win the Nobel Peace Prize.
By a force of illegal aliens, like everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements. But for me, the real prize will be the sons and daughters who live to grow up with their mothers and fathers, because millions of people are no longer being killed in endless and unglorious wars. Stay this way, every sovereign nation.
But he saved some of his harshest criticism for the United Nations itself.
As we do now, and to limit the... Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the #1 political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. This was a humanitarian act for all involved because...
US President Donald Trump praised Ukraine's fight against Russia here in New York during the UN General Assembly. He said that Ukraine should restore its pre-war border with the help of the US and NATO. He also said that sanctions on Russia remain an option. In a press conference with Zelenskyy, Trump said that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter NATO space. Zelenskyy will address the UN on Wednesday. Eleonora Vasquez, Euronews, New York.
As world leaders gathered in New York for the United Nations General Assembly, Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani urged the end to the Israel-Palestine conflict and vowed to continue facilitating the peace process. During his address, the Emir said Israel's goal is to destroy Gaza, make it unlivable, and displace the Palestinians. On the sidelines of the General Assembly, Sheikh Tamim and other Arab leaders met with U.S. President Donald Trump to discuss Gaza's future, including post-war governance and reconstruction.
The only reason we're here is to stop the war and bring the hostages back. And we count on you and your leadership as well to end this war and to help the people of Gaza. The situation is very, very, very bad there.
In a lighter moment that went viral on social media, French President Emmanuel Macron joked with President Trump that he was blocked by his motorcade before making a serious request, a trilateral meeting with the Qatari leader this weekend to discuss Gaza. We'll continue to follow this developing story. Adil Halim, Euronews, Doha.
Super Typhoon Ragasa, as one of the strongest in years, has halted life on the southern Chinese coast after leaving a trail of deadly destruction in Taiwan and the Philippines. 14 people died in a flooded township in Taiwan, and 4 deaths were reported in the Philippines. Early on Wednesday, the storm whipped waves taller than lampposts onto Hong Kong's walkways. Fierce winds of around 195 kilometers per hour knocked down hundreds of trees, damaged buildings, and left over 30 people injured. In the nearby casino hub of Macau, streets turned into streams, forcing shops and schools to close and power to be cut in flooded areas. The powerful typhoon skirted about 100 kilometers south of Hong Kong, with hundreds of people in both cities seeking refuge in temporary centers.
The European Commission is calling for a drone defence wall along the EU's eastern flank after several drones shuttered Copenhagen airport for several hours.
But still, for those who still doubted the need to have a drone wall in the European Union, well, here we get another example of how important it is. The latest attacks in Romania, in Poland, in Estonia, now in Denmark, 4 member states have been targeted, and this is precisely why we will be working on this drone wall. As mentioned by Anita, Commissioner Kubilius will meet with the 7 frontline member states. I named them yesterday. Here we go again: Estonia, Latvia, Finland, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, and I can now add to that list also Denmark, of course, on top of Ukraine.
Many thanks, Carl.
Danish leader Mette Frederiksen called the drone incident the most serious attack yet on the country's critical infrastructure and said Russian involvement could not yet be ruled out. The Commission says the drone defence project, first outlined by Ursula von der Leyen, will unite 8 countries, including Denmark, Poland, Romania and the Baltic states, to detect and respond to aerial incursions. Recent months have seen Russian assets violate the airspace of Poland, Romania and Estonia. EU officials say the incidents show Moscow is testing the boundaries of European borders and prove the bloc cannot hesitate to act in the face of Russian aggression.
The European Parliament's Committee on Legal Affairs has voted to protect the immunity of Peter Magyar, Klara Dobrev and Ilaria Salis, all sought by Hungary's judiciary on different charges. Hungarian authorities had submitted 3 separate requests to lift the immunity of Magyar, who is also the leader of Hungary's opposition party Tisza, and the main political opponent of Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. But the committee disagreed. By contrast, the same Committee on Legal Affairs has voted to lift the immunity of Polish MEPs Michał Dworczyk and Daniel Obajtek. The final decision on all 5 MEPs will be taken at the next plenary session in Strasbourg at the beginning of October. Vincenzo Genovese, Euronews, Brussels.
Jimmy Kimmel returned to his late-night show on Tuesday after a 6-day suspension over comments about the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
And that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual.
Last week, ABC suspended the show after a group of affiliated stations said they would not air it, calling the remarks offensive and insensitive.
For those who think I did.
Kimmel also defended free speech, saying the government cannot be allowed to control what we do and do not say on television, calling it un-American.
And family members on the other side.
However, President Donald Trump criticized the host's return, while the head of the FCC had threatened action against ABC's parent company, Disney, just last week.
This was a sick person who believed violence was a solution. And
Jens Eskeland, president of the EU Chamber of Commerce in China, warned of a sharp rise in Chinese exports to Europe following Washington's announcement of sweeping import tariffs in April. Shifting trade from the US to Europe could have a significant impact on European industries, especially if imports from other countries are offered at low prices.
Have seen in the first half how exports from China to North America have been declining. So I think you could perhaps term it a trade diversion. But I don't think it's the whole story. I think there are more elements to this sort of continued growth of Chinese exports to Europe. One is, of course, that you have a number of Chinese companies that are just very good at what they are doing.
One reason for the jump, China's weak currency. The country's economy is battling stagnant consumer demand and falling property prices, headwinds that are also squeezing European businesses in China. The latest survey by the EU Chamber of Commerce in China shows 73% say doing business there is getting harder year after year, with confidence at rock bottom.
The pessimism that you see right now is primarily due to the state of the Chinese economy. We have seen that in many sectors there is very intense competition. You have overcapacity in some sectors. So we really think the Chinese government right now needs to focus on how do we get back to a situation where sort of demand and supply is in sort of better alignment than is the case today.
Talking to Euronews, the EU business leader warned that if the current trend of trade imbalance continues, tensions with China are almost certain to rise, urging both sides to keep talking to reduce the risk for their economies.
We want to have a clean line of sight, predictability, reliability are things really that we appreciate as businesses. As we do our plans, we make investments and so on. And I think in this present environment where you sort of have sky-high tariffs and then they decrease and then one policy announcement is being made and then there is a reaction. All this volatility right now is something that affects business behaviors.